The T-54 is really just a staple of Soviet engineering. It's got that angled front, it's got a rounded turret, and that same old gun that every other 100mm Russian tank carries. It's kind of funny how similar even today the Russian army's tanks look back to the 70s when vehicles like the 54 were designed. However, the 55A is kind of a weird vehicle. You'll notice it's extremely similar looking to the T-54, but there's a big difference. The 55A has no flag behind it, where the 54 has the Soviet Union's flag. Why does this tank have no flag behind it? Well, it's a bit of an interesting story. This tank was actually designed for Germany. 1,800 of these tanks exact were shipped out to the German army back in the 1970s. That's a lot of them. So it is a Soviet tank, but they're used in Germany. So that's why it has an unidentified nation flag. I don't know why Wargaming didn't just give it a Soviet flag or a German flag, because let's be honest, it should have gotten either of them, but I guess they put it in between and made it unidentified. In today's video, we're going to be talking about this tank, why it's different than the T-54, and why you should not, with a big N-O-T, be spending your money, your 10,000 gold, on this tank. Let's first of all compare the armor profile of the T-54 to the T-55A. On flat ground, the T-54 has 212 millimeters of effective armor, and if we compare that to the T-55A, it's sitting at 172. Ooh, that's 40 millimeters less. Just to show you how bad it is, if we angle this tank and use its 5 degrees of gun depression, the armor is still less than the 54 on flat ground. So yeah, there are clearly some issues with the armor. This is just with AP shells, by the way. The T-54, using its self-haul down, is upwards of 253. Even heat shells aimed at its upper plate don't have a chance of penetrating. The 54 is known for the armor. However, there is a big difference though. The 54's turret is pretty bad. It goes 270, 220, 230. Compare that to the 55A turret that really only has one little weak spot that at thickest is 250 just on the weakest parts and then goes up to 370. So the 55A has a much better turret, but a much better or much worse hull. It's kind of weird how that works. I kind of like the 54's armor better though, because it gets the best of both worlds. Sorry, I had a bit of a mix match there in my words. But yeah, the 54 has a strong turret and a strong hull. The 55A has a very strong turret, but a very weak hull. So yeah, you can see the differences. Either way, the big thing that really goes for the 55A is the gun. The gun on the T-55A is a 100mm. It's very similar to the T-54, but it's a German gun, and as we know, the Germans are very known for their accuracy. It's got 3.3 seconds of aiming time, 0.317 dispersion, 2,700 damage per minute, and very good pen of 230 on the standard, and 297 on the heat. So that's great. Let's compare that to the T-54's gun. Well, one of two guns. The one gun has 3.6 seconds of aiming time, which is worse, 0.317 dispersion, which is the same, and about the same DPM. But here's the issue. You've got 20 millimeters less penetration. If we put on the gun that gets more pen, it loses dispersion, damage per minute, and it gets the 3.3 second aiming time. As you noticed, the T-55A gets both of those. It gets the aiming time, it gets the dispersion, it gets all of that, all on one gun. And that is where the 55A is much better on its gun. It can do the best of both worlds when you're running the 55A, where the 54, yeah, you'll definitely have some issues. You'll either have to load heat shells if you're running the one gun, which I am a lot more, or you're going to have to deal with better penetration, but much worse stats on every other stature. So it's weird. I don't think the 55A is a great tank though. Like, yes, its gun is nice, its mobility is good, it's a little bit more mobile than the 54, but it's just the fact that why would you drive a tank that has much, much worse armor and it costs money? That's the thing. But I don't think it's a bad tank. I just want to point that out now. If you've bought this tank and you enjoy it, good on you. I mean, it is a pretty cool tank. I've had donations here and there on streams for me to play it. And yeah, it's definitely a vehicle that you can get good games out in, and it can feel more enjoyable at times than the 54. It's just that against tier 10s, and thankfully we're not up against them in this battle, you feel a lot worse due to your armor being much worse. And against tier 8s, you also feel a lot worse because your armor, again, is a lot worse. If Wargaming gave this vehicle 6 or 7 degrees of gun depression, I think it would be a fantastic vehicle. But because it only sits at 5, I just feel like 5 is not a great number for the 55A. So we've spotted, it looks like a Conqueror off to the side, and we've also spotted a Reveler Risei. Let's aim it on his tank. There you go. What? Ow. We got ripped off, bouncing our Rev. But thankfully, we got to bounce right on our turret as well, so I can't really be mad, just weird. We know the Borsig is spotted already. The only tank that hasn't been detected is the enemy Tortoise, which I'm hoping is somewhere in the back. Maybe not. I'm not sure yet. Well, there is the Rev, who we have spotted, so maybe we can get a shell into the Rev. There you go. Nice tap for 328. And let's back up. The Tortoise has been detected, so that's good news. And aiming fire. Yeah, there you go. Another nice shot into the Rev. You can see the DPM on this tank is very nice. You're able to out-reload a lot of opponents, get some big old slaps in. There goes the Rev, and boom. Whoa, that was a bad shell from this tank, wasn't it? Hopefully that Rev sits right there, but no, looks like he's pushing up. We've already lost a very strong tier 9 tank, so I'm going to start pushing up. Hopefully we can get some nice shells out. That ST1 looks to be stock, but you never know. Here we go. Let's push over here. I don't think this guy was looking at me. He is, but yeah, that ST1 is definitely stock. Now, that is still a tier 8 gun being ran on that ST1, which means that guy definitely has some decent pen still, enough to probably butter through my armor. But the player doesn't seem to be all too fantastic, which is fine with me. So let's get another shell into the ST1's lower plate, and let's put on our adrenaline. Maybe we can get another slap out. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and boop. There you go. I mean, obviously, on this moment here, we are out DPMing the ST1 by quite a big chunk. So now let's just try and Circle of Death this guy. That should be perfect for us. And let's go for his rear. There you go. Do a little bit more of a circle. And yeah, this guy is going to be taken out. Obviously, when you're in a stock tank, it's quite easy to get flanked. So that guy gets cleared. Now we've got the Tortoise, who's probably going to start turning towards me. That's why I'm going to shoot at the Borsig, who's not looking at me. Get a max roll, which, yeah, I don't think that guy enjoyed all too much. 4, 3, 2, 1, and fire. There you go. Finishing off what is a very strong opponent on the enemy team. All right, we have a Foch, and that's actually really good news, because the only tank I have to be worried about is the Tortoise and the VK168. Now, the Tortoise isn't looking at me right now, but the Yo isn't either. So let's get an HE shell into the Yo, finish him off. VK168 missed me, which is perfect, which means we can just load in a heat shell right on his turret cheek. There you go. Nice tap. And even if this 168 does hit me, I should be able to finish the guy off. So here we go, and fire. Nice. All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 55A for one of our first battles. And you can see the gun did a very, very solid job peppering into the enemy opponents. The mobility worked, the accuracy's great, but the 54 could have probably done most of what we did in this game. But it's a nice tank. I mean, we did 4,200 damage. Might have even pulled out a mastery, because I can't imagine all too many players are doing 4K in this vehicle. I guess we'll find out. Bum ba dum ba dum ba dum bum. There you go. There's your mastery for the 55A. So the first battle went pretty well. And yeah, not a bad vehicle at all. The gun's nice, and we were definitely able to use that extra DPM we have with this gun. But I will say, as a counter argument, the gun I'm running on my 54 has the same DPM. It's also got the same dispersion, a bit worse aiming time, but it doesn't really make too big of a difference when you're behind your opponents, does it? So, yeah, it really wouldn't have made a huge difference in that game. In fact, I probably could have bounced shells from that ST1 frontally a lot more. I could have felt a lot more confident poking RHMs, stuff like that. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind. Now we're in a tier 10 battle. Now, against tier 10s, I gotta say, I do actually enjoy the gun a lot more on this vehicle, because you want to have a better gun when fighting tier 10s. That's obviously common sense. If you're in a tier 9 and you've got a gun of like tier 8 levels of pen, that's not great. So I do like the fact that this gun does have the accuracy and the penetration to cut through a lot of tier 10 mediums and other opponents, but still got to be very careful. So what do they have? They got an Object 140, E50, and an AMX 50B for mobility. Apart from that, they do have a 183, which is obviously a very, very scary tank. They got a 140 that did look like detect me across the map, so gotta be careful on that. I don't really want to poke the guy, but if that 140 spotted that side, that'll give me the idea that they're not over here. Yes, that idea would be the correct idea. There's an E50 off to the side. Gotta have a slap into the side of his turret once. And maybe we can get another tap into that E50. Let's push up and see if we can. Hello, hello, hello. And let's go for a tap. There you go. Nice finishing shell into the enemy E50. All right. Well, that's great. We got the FE Tune 5 B183 off to the side, who we're going to aim in on and fire. There you go. Nice tap again. Our boss Chatillon did not get hit by the 183, which is great news, because obviously I don't want to have a teammate that is a one-shot. I thought he was going to keep backing up, but that's all good anyway. We've already done a pretty decent chunk off of the enemy team, and that 183 is basically out of the battlefield. So let's see. 140, ugh! Tried to hit that shot. It was so close, but just didn't want to connect. Well, maybe we can get this one out into the 140, aiming and fire. There you go. Nice tap, 322, bringing what is a pretty healthy 140. Well, everybody shot him, I guess. I'm not just going to say that was me. That 140 got evaporated on the enemy team. Now, we've cleared the deadliest tank on the enemy team against me and everybody, which is the 183, so that's great news. So now all we got to do is farm the enemy heavies like the C100. Gonna put on my adrenaline, and here we go. Let's aim in again, and oh boy, that 704 just got deleted. That kind of sucks for that guy, doesn't it? Well, let's just, I was going to say let's aim it on the C-75, but we can't get a shell in just yet. There you go. Oh, come on. I got ripped off. That was so lame. Well, let's push up. There's only 3 tanks left. They're all quite healthy, so there's still a decent chance I can break the 3,000 damage barrier here, but I'm not too sure about it. Here we go. Let's aim in a shell onto the E-100. There you go. One nice tap, and let's get directly behind him. Hello, Mr. E-100. How are you doing? Let us go for another tap, and as I said, the turret armor on this tank is actually pretty good, and you can see it getting a nice bounce there. Looks like the 50 TP is going to finish him off, so what that means is, okay, maybe not, but you know what? I like damage, so let's see if we can get some damage out before we finish off the C-100. We still out-reload him anyway, and that means all we need to do is start shooting at the enemy AMX-50B, who is right here. Let's aim in an HE shell. Boom! Nice tap for 449, and that was a pretty good game. We were just shy of 3,000 damage. Looks like we did about 2,800, so not bad. Not bad at all for the T-55A. Let us take a look, and yeah, 2,800 on the dot. So I like the 55A, but as I said, I wouldn't suggest to buy it. It's really just not a tank that you want to get. So, I mean, again, 54 could have probably done everything we did in this game. Our armor didn't really save us apart from the turret for one shell. Whoop-de-doo. So, yeah, I don't see a big difference between the tanks working out in realism because, yeah, the 10 pen's a big difference, but it's not going to make a huge difference as long as you use the 54 a little bit more aggressive in frontline. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye!